Hey, greetings there, guys and gals. Good to be with you again this week. Last week we talked about some really important stuff for us about behavior and recognizing what's underlying in all of that, and that there are some things that we need to really challenge ourselves with. I hope this week you're finding a lot of things that you can celebrate in your life and in your walk. But also, I also just pray that there's things that are challenging you. I always believe it's good to be challenged in some things, and I believe I'm finding some challenges this week myself. Um, Remember, every situation or circumstance has influence. It's being influenced by evil, it's being influenced by good, it's being influenced by positive, by negative, it's being influenced by perhaps even demons or angels. There's influence that's going on everywhere around us. And every time we experience something or we're in a situation or circumstance, it goes through our filter. So if you bring it around, it goes through our filter. Our filter is our history. That's where we store all of our experiences of life, whether positive or not so positive. That's where everything gets stored. And so when we have something that represents that and we filter it through that, it causes an emotion to come up out of us. And so remember, I was talking about how emotion is simply the E for energy in motion, energy in motion. And that energy in motion then results in an action. And so every time there's a situation or circumstance, we have an action. Sometimes we call it a reaction. It's not always the best thing to have. And so if we're not happy with the way that our actions um, correspond to the situation or circumstance we are, then we have to change our filter. And the only way we can change our filter is to have new experiences. And that's what we call transformation. Transformation is having new experiences that will stump or override the old experiences of our life. Remember that we need to stop feeling good or stop feeling bad about our feelings. How I likened it to a check engine light in a car. It's just to let you know that there's something going on and you need to check it out. And our feelings are a lot like that. We need to be able to recognize that and just be okay with, okay, I'm feeling this. Why am I feeling this? What's going on in me? And take some time just to stop and analyze that. We're a broken person. The false self is not really a false self, but it's more of a distortion of the true self. And as a broken person, if you just say this is just a person, and all of a sudden you get all these cracks right here, and all these, and representing the wounds. Well, what we have a tendency to do is create a shield because we don't want that wound to get hurt anymore. It's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on it. Problem is that wound isn't going to get healed because we're just trying to shield it, we're trying to protect it, we're really not wanting to deal with it. So we put on a layer of protection, and another layer of protection, and another layer of protection. And but we have to realize we're all broken people. That's why we need Jesus, right? And so the wound, the protection is there, the wound itself is there for a couple of reasons. One, it's because I don't want to get hurt anymore. Or another one is I don't want people to know that I can get hurt. Um, and so it will provide some level of satisfaction, but it really doesn't help meet our core belongings, our core longings, what we're really needing on the inside of us. So it's a short-term relief for really to try and satisfy a long-term pain that is going undealt with. Strategy is to create inauthentic connection. So this is why I really encourage church planners, do not begin with strategy. Begin with culture, begin with yourself. Begin with answering the question, who am I? Then as you begin to take that, because the risk of creating strategy before you're ready is actually to create inauthentic relationship. And that's what happens with churches that try and develop programs when they're really not ready to develop those programs, or they're really not meeting a need in developing those programs. And so the more we try to live out a distorted or a false self, the more we feed our shame, the more we feed our self-hatred, and the more we keep living a frustrated life that causes us really not to stretch ourselves and walk in faith to be who God created us to be. There's many ways that we try to protect or cover up and create these false identities or false selves, these dysfunctional selves. And I've got a list of them in here for you, and a little bit of description that goes there with those. And you can take a look at that. Of course, the exercise is for each of us to come up with our own and take a look at our own life and be able to recognize the false selves that we have created and to put a name to it. One for me is the first one that I was able to just really, I just knew this man, and I called it the clown, uh, because I can start clowning around, and really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to hide behind that because I don't really want people to see the pain that I'm in at the moment, or I feel like where they're going is someplace a little bit too vulnerable, and I don't really want to go there, so I start joking around about it. And sometimes I put up the clown because I'm just nervous about the situation and I don't really know how to respond or how to react. It actually developed in me when I was 6 years old. Yeah, I can remember that. I can remember running into a room where my parents were, my two brothers, and some other family members. And as I was coming around the corner, I slipped on the wood floor and crashed. And everybody, of course, in the room just starts laughing. Ah, ha, 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 how funny is that? And and I didn't really want them to see that I was hurt because, man, that hurt when I hit. And I just jumped up and just started doing some other goofy stuff, just to keep them laughing. And I learned right then and there that, hey, you know what? If I act silly, it can protect me. And so I really worked hard and developed that over a lot of years of life. But now I'm working to break it down and to disassemble it. Another one was I could just simply call the dealer. uh, when all else seems to fail, what addiction will serve me best? And man, I lived a hard life of addiction. I was an alcoholic. I was a drug addict. I was a sex addict. I was just whatever addiction I fell into it. I just had a very weak behavior that gave itself to addictions. And so now I have to be really careful about that. Um, I limit myself to things. I have to guard myself on where I go and what I see and what I do and what I hear and et cetera, et cetera. But because I don't want to hide behind that anymore. It doesn't help. It doesn't serve. It doesn't allow for life to come out. Addiction is one of those things that I'm turning to some notes that because it's something that I wrote down one time and I want to find it again. About that. Um, yeah, addiction. It's this. Like I was saying last week, it's the shame we're trying to numb so that we can avoid it. But the result also is to numb the joy that we're seeking, and that's what addiction does for us. And so it's a terrible thing to try and hide behind. Another one that I had was the stealth. Being an introvert, I had a tendency to go to extremes. That's what an addictive behavior does, goes to extremes too. And so as a stealth, my whole identity was to try and stay under the radar, not be known, because I was afraid if people really knew who I was, they wouldn't like me. And so I really lived this weird, crazy life, a poser. I was able to be whoever or whatever I thought that they were wanting me to be. When I was in high school, I could hang out with any group of people, depending on what I felt like at the time. One weekend I might be out with the potheads, and because that's what I felt like that weekend. The next weekend I might be out with the alcoholics and hanging out with them. One weekend I might be hanging out with the jocks, because I was playing basketball and doing all that kind of stuff. I could even hang out with the goody two shoes, and I could just fit in with whatever crowd I wanted to fit into, and really took on a chameleon-like lifestyle with that. Um, so anyway, the challenge for you guys is to take a look at those things in your life. What is it that you have developed to protect yourself? What is it that you're trying to do? You're trying to protect and keep people out, or you're trying to protect your wound that's within? And then begin to name them, begin to list them. It's a really strong and powerful exercise. You'll have an opportunity to respond to some of in the questionnaire to some of that stuff, and of course in your journal, really respond to why is it meaningful to you, or what is meaningful about this exercise to you? How's God working through you, the Holy Spirit in your life about all of this? And then, of course, what are you struggling with? Never hesitate to call, text, email, whatever, if you have any questions about anything, or if you just want to talk about one of those things. That's what I want to do. Use the attachment too that we've given you. We call it Bubble Buddies. In the center is a circle, and then there's other circles that are around it, and you can use those just to kind of begin to graph out or lay out the different mask or the different protective layers that you created for yourself. Love you guys. Really praying for you this week. This is a powerful week. This really want to encourage you to put your all into it. And as you're putting yourself into it, and as you take time to reply to the response question, also take time to reply to somebody else. You know, recognize what's going on in them because it helps you. It also helps you to recognize what's going on in you, and that's how you build relationships as well. You know, so take some time to read others, reply to their responses as well, and looking forward to a couple of weeks. We'll be together for another weekend retreat. All right, love you guys. Blessings to you. And if you got any questions about anything, give me a call. Bye bye.